My husband emptied our joint account to buy his mistress a beach house. What he didn't know was that I owned 80% of his company by the time he found out he was already bankrupt. Let me tell you how it happened. The notification on my phone cast an eerie blue glow across my face in the darkness of my home office. 3:27 a.m. My heart stopped as I read the alert again, hoping somehow the numbers would change. They didn't. $2 million transferred from our joint account to Costa Real Estate Holdings, the same account where I'd been quietly depositing my quarterly dividends from Phoenix Holdings for years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Building up what James believed was our nest egg. I leaned back in my leather chair, my fingers tracing the edge of my tablet where another email waited. The confirmation from my real estate contact about a stunning beachfront property in Malibu. The same property James had casually mentioned last week as a potential investment opportunity. Now I knew exactly who he planned to invest in, and it wasn't his wife of 12 years. The soft hum of my hidden empire surrounded me. 3 monitors displaying real-time trading data from Asian markets, a secure laptop connected to Phoenix, Holdings private servers, and a wall of achievements carefully disguised as charity awards. Each crystal trophy and plaque represented another milestone in building one of the largest pharmaceutical conglomerates in the country, all while my husband believed I spent my days planning fundraisers and choosing tablecloth colors. Another late night, sweetheart? James's voice drifted from the doorway, startling me. He stood there in his bespoke Tom Ford suit, every silver hair perfectly in place, adjusting the Rolex I'd given him last Christmas. Paid for with dividends from my company's latest acquisition, the same company he thought he owned. Just checking some charity numbers, I replied smoothly, closing the banking app with practiced ease. The lie fell from my lips naturally, honed by years of maintaining my cover as the dutiful wife who ran a small nonprofit. The Foundation's annual gala is coming up. The dismissive wave of his hand was so familiar it almost made me laugh. Almost. Don't stress too much about it, darling. It's just another dinner party. Just another dinner party. Like the last one where I'd negotiated a $300 million merger while he thought I was discussing flower arrangements. Or the one before that, where I'd secured exclusive distribution rights across 3 continents while he bragged to his friends about his business acumen. The Takeshi Pharmaceuticals team is coming tonight, he continued, straightening his tie. Another gift from me. Big merger discussion over dinner. Going to run late, so don't wait up. I nodded, my face a mask of wifely understanding. What James didn't know was that I'd had lunch with Takeshi's CEO just last week. There would be no merger, at least not with Reynolds Pharmaceuticals. They'd already signed with Phoenix Holdings, my company operating under a different name. You should treat yourself today, he added, pulling out his wallet and handing me his credit card. Buy something nice. You've been so understanding about all these late nights. The platinum card felt heavy in my hand. Another thing he wouldn't have without my hidden success. I thought about the Tiffany's charge from yesterday, wondering if his young assistant Sophia was wearing her new jewelry to the office today. The merger must be going well, I said carefully, watching his reaction. You seem confident. It's basically a done deal. He stood straighter, preening. Once we acquire Takeshi's distribution network, Reynolds Pharmaceuticals will be unstoppable. I'm thinking of buying a yacht to celebrate. Maybe we can sail it to that new house I've been looking at. The audacity was breathtaking. He was planning to buy a yacht with my company's money to celebrate a merger that would never happen, presumably to sail to the beach house he'd just bought his mistress with our joint savings that came from my quarterly dividends. My phone buzzed, with a message from Margaret, my CFO. SEC filings complete. Press release scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Board members all confirmed for tonight's charity event at the Grand Plaza. You know what? I said, touching James's arm. You're right. I think I will buy something new for tonight. Something unforgettable. He kissed my cheek absently. That's my girl. Always looking perfect for those charity functions. What would I do without you managing the social calendar while I handle the real business? If he hadn't been so self-absorbed, he might have noticed my smile didn't reach my eyes. After 15 years of marriage, 12 of them spent building my business empire in secret. James still saw exactly what he wanted to see. The supportive wife whose biggest concern was planning parties and looking pretty. As he left for the office, I opened my laptop to check the final preparations. The press release was ready, the legal documents were in order, and every major financial news outlet had received an exclusive invitation to tonight's charity gala. In less than 24 hours, the business world would learn that Phoenix Holdings, the mysterious corporation that had been quietly dominating the pharmaceutical industry, was run by the woman James Reynolds dismissed as just his wife. But first I had a gala to prepare for, one final performance as the devoted wife before the curtain fell on James's illusion of success. I picked up his credit card and smiled. He did say to buy something unforgettable. My phone lit up again with texts from my inside source at James's office. The messages came in rapid succession, painting a picture of my husband's morning activities that made my blood boil despite my outward calm. He's with her again. Third floor conference room. She just ordered lunch for 2 from that French place you hate. They've been in there for 2 hours reviewing contracts. He just sent the entire staff home early for a team building exercise. Only Sophia is staying behind. I didn't need the updates to know he was with Sophia, his assistant turned mistress. The same woman who'd just become the proud owner of a $2.3 million beach house, courtesy of our joint savings. The same woman who had no idea she was sleeping with a soon-to-be bankrupt man. From my private office across town, the real one, not the small charity workspace James occasionally visited, I pulled up the security feeds from Reynolds Pharmaceuticals. The cameras had been installed years ago under the guise of a corporate security upgrade. James had signed the authorization himself, never bothering to read the fine print about who actually had access to the footage. The most interesting part? Sophia actually had more business acumen than James gave her credit for. I'd watched her. Career from afar. Graduated top of her class from Wharton, turned down offers from Goldman Sachs and McKinsey to work at what she thought was James's company. Her resume had crossed my desk 3 times before James hired her, each time with glowing recommendations. What a waste of talent, falling for a man who would never see her as more than a trophy. Just like he'd never seen me as more than a social secretary with a charity hobby. Mrs. Reynolds? My own assistant, David, appeared at my office door. Unlike the glass-walled fishbowl where James conducted his affairs, my real office occupied the entire top floor of a discreet building downtown, where I ran the parent company that actually owned Reynolds Pharmaceuticals. The board is ready. For you. I smoothed down my Chanel blazer, a subtle armor for the battle ahead, and gathered my files. Today's meeting would set everything in motion. Has legal confirmed the timing? David nodded, falling into step beside me as we walked toward the conference room. His efficiency had been invaluable over the years, helping maintain my double life with meticulous attention to detail. Everything's in place. Once you give the word, we can initiate the share consolidation. The SEC filings are ready to go public the moment you say so. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 8 of the most powerful people in the pharmaceutical industry, all of whom had kept my secret for years. They knew me as Alexandra Martinez, CEO of Phoenix Holdings, the mysterious parent company that had been systematically acquiring controlling interests in mid-sized pharmaceutical companies for the past decade. None of them knew I was also Amanda Reynolds, wife of James Reynolds, the man who claimed to own one of our largest subsidiaries. Well, all except Margaret Phillips, our CFO, who'd been my mentor since business school and had helped me architect this long game. Lady and gentlemen, I began, taking my seat at the head of the table. Thank you for meeting on such short notice. As you're aware, We've been planning the Reynolds Pharmaceuticals integration for some time. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Recent developments have made it necessary to accelerate our timeline. I pulled up the bank statement on the screen behind me. The $2 million transfer to Costa Real Estate Holdings glowed like a neon sign of my husband's betrayal. Next to it, I displayed the property listing for the Malibu Beach House, a modern masterpiece of glass and steel perched above the Pacific. Our original plan was to wait until the Takeshi merger fell through naturally, I continued, clicking through the slides showing James's increasingly erratic financial decisions. But it seems Mr. Reynolds has made some interesting financial decisions with company-adjacent funds that necessitate immediate action. Margaret raised an eyebrow, her expression a mix of professional concern and personal indignation on my behalf. The beach house? And the Tiffany's shopping spree, I added, switching to the next slide showing the jewelry store charges, using funds from our joint account, which, incidentally, contains my quarterly dividends from Phoenix Holdings. Robert Blackwood, our head of legal, leaned forward in his chair. His bow tie, as always, was perfectly straight, a detail that had always amused me during our most cutthroat negotiations. Mrs. Martinez, are you suggesting we move forward with the complete consolidation? That would mean going public with my identity as both Alexandra Martinez and Amanda Reynolds? Yes. I met each board member's eyes in turn, gauging their reactions. It's time to end this charade. James Reynolds has been running my company into the ground while spending my money on his mistress. I'd say that violates several clauses in his employment contract. Because that was the beautiful irony of it all. James wasn't just stealing from his wife. He was embezzling from his own CEO. Every penny he spent on Sophia was actually coming from the company he thought he owned. The boardroom erupted in controlled chaos as my team began executing our long-established contingency plan. In less than 48 hours, everyone would know that Reynolds Pharmaceuticals had always been just a small part of my empire. And James would learn that sometimes the biggest mistake a man can make is underestimating the woman he betrayed. The next morning, I maintained our usual routine. James had stumbled in at 2 a.m., reeking of expensive wine and wearing the same suit from yesterday. I pretended to be asleep as he showered and changed, my mind racing through the final details of what was about to unfold. The pre-dawn hours ticked by as I listened to his familiar morning routine, the sound of his electric toothbrush, the rustle of his clothing, the quiet curses as he nursed what must have been an impressive hangover. In the kitchen, I made his favorite breakfast, eggs Benedict with hollandaise sauce made from scratch, just as I had every morning for the past 12 years. The irony of preparing this last meal wasn't lost on me. Like a condemned man's final feast, though James didn't know his execution was imminent. "You're in a good mood," he commented, adjusting his tie, another gift from me, while scrolling through his phone. The blue light illuminated the shadows under his eyes, evidence of his late night with Sophia. The charity planning going well? I placed his coffee in front of him, French press, just how he liked it. The rich aroma filled the kitchen, mingling with the lingering scent of his cologne and what I now recognized as Sophia's signature perfume. "Very well. In fact, I'm hosting a special event tonight at the Grand Plaza. I'd love for you to come." James barely glanced up from his phone, his attention caught by what I knew was the morning's financial news. The business world was already buzzing with rumors about Phoenix Holdings' upcoming announcement, though none of them had guessed the true nature of today's revelation. "Can't tonight, sweetheart. Critical business dinner. The Takeshi merger. Remember?" He pulled out his wallet and handed me his credit card with that familiar patronizing smile. "Why don't you buy yourself something nice? You've been so understanding about all these late nights." The platinum card felt heavy in my hand, another thing he wouldn't have without my hidden success. I thought about the Tiffany's charge from yesterday, wondering if Sophia was wearing her new jewelry to the office today. The diamond bracelet that cost more than most people's monthly salary, charged to my company's credit line. The merger must be going well, I said carefully, watching his reaction. Years of boardroom negotiations had taught me to read the smallest micro-expressions, the tiniest tells that revealed a person's true thoughts. You seem confident. It's basically a done deal. He stood, straightening his jacket with the self-assurance of a man who believed his own lies. Once we acquire Takeshi's distribution network, Reynolds Pharmaceuticals will be unstoppable. I'm thinking of buying a yacht to celebrate. Maybe we can sail it to that new house I've been looking at. The audacity almost made me laugh. He was planning to buy a yacht with my company's money to celebrate a merger that would never happen. Presumably to sail to the beach house he bought his mistress with our joint savings. The level of delusion was almost impressive. My phone buzzed. A message from Margaret. SEC filings complete. Press release scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Board members all confirmed for tonight's charity event at the Grand Plaza. Takeshi's team will be there. You know what? I said, touching James's arm in a gesture that had become mechanical over the years. You're right. I think I will buy something new for tonight. Something unforgettable. He kissed my cheek absently, his mind already elsewhere. That's my girl. Always looking perfect for those charity functions. What would I do without you managing the social calendar while I handle the real business? If he hadn't been so self-absorbed, he might have noticed my smile didn't reach my eyes. After 15 years of marriage, 12 of them spent building my business empire in secret, James still saw exactly what he wanted to see. The supportive wife whose biggest concern was planning, parties and looking pretty. As he left for the office, I opened my laptop to check the final preparations. The press release was ready, the legal documents were in order, and every major financial news outlet had received an exclusive invitation to tonight's charity gala. In less than 24 hours, the business world would learn that Phoenix Holdings, the mysterious corporation that had been quietly dominating the pharmaceutical industry, was run by the woman James Reynolds dismissed as just his wife. The security feed from his office showed him arriving, immediately calling Sophia into his office. They thought they were being discreet with their morning meetings, but every lingering touch, every intimate whisper was captured by cameras that reported directly to me. I watched as he handed her a small blue box, the Tiffany's purchase from yesterday, and her practiced look of surprise. But first I had a gala to prepare for. One final performance as the devoted wife before the curtain fell on James's illusion of success. I picked up his credit card and smiled. He did say to buy something unforgettable. Tonight, I would need to look every inch the CEO I truly was, even if no one but the board would understand the significance until tomorrow. The Grand Plaza's ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the city's elite. I'd spared no expense. For this charity gala, after all, I was using James's credit card, blissfully unaware he was actually paying with my money. Every detail was meticulously planned, from the rare white orchids cascading down crystal columns to the strategic placement of financial reporters disguised as society columnists. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched James work the room, bragging about Reynolds Pharmaceuticals' imminent merger with Takeshi. He moved from group to group, each gesture more expansive than the last, his confidence fueled by expensive champagne and absolute certainty in his own importance. The same confidence that had led him to believe he could steal from his own wife, and unknowingly his own CEO, without consequences. "Amanda, darling," Margaret approached, air-kissing my cheeks with practiced sophistication. To the outside world, she was just another wealthy socialite attending a charity function. No one would guess she was the CFO of Phoenix Holdings, orchestrating the biggest revelation in corporate history. Everything looks magnificent. The orchids alone must have cost a fortune. James's credit card came in handy, I whispered, making her smirk. He insisted I buy something unforgettable for tonight. Speaking of your husband? She nodded discreetly toward the bar, where James was getting remarkably cozy with his assistant. Sophia wore a stunning red Valentino dress that I'd bet matched the price tag of her new Tiffany's jewelry. They thought they were being discreet, but their lingering touches and intimate whispers were obvious to anyone paying attention. The sight might have hurt if I hadn't spent the last year meticulously documenting every inappropriate expense, every stolen moment, building an airtight case for both divorce and corporate malfeasance. Instead, I felt only a cold satisfaction knowing that their indiscretion tonight would make tomorrow's revelation even more devastating. Mrs. Reynolds? David materialized at my elbow, his expression professionally neutral, though I could see the anticipation in his eyes. Everything is in place. The reporters are stationed throughout the room and the board members are all here. We're just waiting for your signal. I checked my phone. 8:57 p.m. In 3 minutes, the press release would go live, announcing Phoenix Holdings' complete acquisition of Reynolds Pharmaceuticals, along with the true identity of its CEO. Simultaneously, our legal team would freeze all company assets, including the funds James had been embezzling for his lavish gifts to Sophia. Amanda! James's voice boomed across the room. He was heading toward me, Sophia trailing behind like an expensive perfumed shadow. His bow tie was slightly askew, and his cheeks were flushed from champagne. Your events always draw the most interesting crowd. I just saw Thomas Takeshi himself walk in. Indeed, Thomas Takeshi had arrived, right on schedule. He caught my eye across the room and gave an imperceptible nod. The merger contract he'd signed last week was with Phoenix Holdings, not Reynolds Pharmaceuticals, but James wouldn't know. That for about 2 more minutes. Darling. James draped his arm around my shoulders, his wedding ring glinting under the chandeliers. The same ring I'd bought him for our 10th anniversary, paid for with the proceeds from a merger he thought he'd negotiated. Have you met my new assistant? Sophia's been instrumental in the Takeshi merger negotiations. Sophia extended her manicured hand, a massive diamond bracelet, yesterday's Tiffany's purchase, sparkling on her wrist. Mrs. Reynolds, your charity work is so inspiring. James tells me you're absolutely brilliant at planning these events. Phone vibrated. 9 p.m. Showtime. Actually, I smiled, stepping out from under James's arm. Event planning isn't my only talent. I nodded to David, who signaled the staff. The ballroom's massive screens, supposedly installed for the charity auction, flickered to life. The room fell silent as the Phoenix Holdings logo appeared, followed by my professional headshot. Ladies and gentlemen, I projected my voice across the suddenly hushed crowd. Welcome to a very special announcement. James's face contorted in confusion as he read the headline scrolling across the screens. Phoenix Holdings announces complete acquisition of Reynolds Pharmaceuticals. CEO Alexandra Martinez reveals true identity. What is this? He demanded, but his voice was drowned out by the gasps as my 2 photos appeared side by side. Alexandra Martinez, CEO of Phoenix Holdings, and Amanda Reynolds, his supposedly simple charity planning wife. The champagne glass in his hand trembled slightly, sending ripples through the golden liquid. The transformation in the room was immediate and electric. Society photographers who had been capturing mundane charity gala shots suddenly turned into paparazzi, their cameras clicking rapidly. Financial reporters emerged from their covers, digital recorders extended. And through it all, James stood, frozen, his world crumbling in real time under the crystal chandeliers he thought his money had paid for. The color drained from James's face as he stared at the screens, his champagne glass frozen halfway to his lips. Beside him, Sophia's perfectly painted mouth hung open, the diamond bracelet suddenly feeling like a brand of shame on her wrist. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder as recognition dawned across hundreds of faces. For those who don't know me, I continued, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom, I'm Alexandra Martinez, CEO of Phoenix Holdings. But most of you know me as Amanda Reynolds, wife of James Reynolds, the man who's been running one small subsidiary of my company while claiming it as his own. I strode to the center of the room, smartphones and cameras capturing every moment. The financial reporters I'd strategically placed throughout the gathering were frantically taking notes, their faces alight with the knowledge that they were witnessing the business story of the year. 15 years ago, I founded Phoenix Holdings, with a vision to revolutionize the pharmaceutical industry. Along the way, I married a man who thought his wife's greatest achievement was organizing charity galas. A man who never questioned where the money came from for his expensive gifts, his luxury cars, or his... I paused, looking directly at Sophia. Various personal expenses. James finally found his voice, though it cracked with panic. Amanda? What are you talking about? This is insane. I own Reynolds Pharmaceuticals. I built it from the ground up. Actually, James, Margaret stepped forward, tablet in hand, her CFO persona now fully visible beneath the socialite facade. Reynolds Pharmaceuticals has been a subsidiary of Phoenix Holdings for the past 7 years. Every major decision you thought you made was approved by our board. Every success you claimed was orchestrated by your wife. Even your salary was paid by her company. The screens shifted to display financial records, years of systematic stock acquisition, board approvals, and finally, the recent bank transfers to Costa Real Estate Holdings and Tiffany's. Security guards discreetly moved into position as James's face turned from pale to red. That's right, I continued, watching comprehension dawn on his face. The $2 million you transferred for your mistress's beach house, that came from my company's dividends. The jewelry you bought her yesterday? My money. The merger you were so confident about? Mr. Takeshi, would you like to explain? Thomas Takeshi stepped forward, enjoying his role in this revelation. The merger agreement was signed last week, with Phoenix Holdings, not Reynolds Pharmaceuticals. Mrs. Martinez was quite persuasive in her negotiations. Several board members from Takeshi Pharmaceuticals nodded in confirmation, their expressions a mix of admiration and amusement. They'd known for months who really controlled Reynolds Pharmaceuticals, having dealt directly with me while James boasted about his non-existent negotiating prowess. James's face twisted from shock to anger. You've been lying to me? All these years pretending to be some simple charity worker while going behind my back? Behind your back? I laughed, the sound echoing off the marble floors. James, I built this company in plain sight. You were just too busy undermining my intelligence to notice that every major player in this industry reported to me. Too occupied with your affairs to question why all your business associates seemed so interested in your wife's opinions. Security guards moved closer as James took a threatening step forward, his fists clenched. You can't do this to me. I built that company. Every deal, every contract. No, James. You played at being a CEO while systematically embezzling from your own boss to impress your mistress. I nodded to Robert Blackwood, who stepped forward with a thick folder. Speaking of which, the board has some concerns about those recent transfers. $2 million is a significant unauthorized withdrawal. Sophia began backing away from James, her survival instincts clearly kicking in. The diamond bracelet caught the light as she moved, each sparkle a reminder of his misappropriated funds. Several of her former admirers in the room were now carefully avoiding eye contact, not wanting to be associated with the scandal unfolding. The beach house, James sputtered. Our savings. My dividends, I corrected him. Every penny in that account came from Phoenix Holdings. You never questioned why we had so much money, did you? Too busy spending it on your mistress to wonder where it all came from. The screens behind me shifted to show the beach house purchase agreement. As of this evening, the property has been reclaimed by Phoenix Holdings as part of our asset recovery process. I'm sure Ms. Rodriguez understands. She'll need to vacate immediately. Sophia's face crumpled as she realized her dream house had evaporated along with her married lover's imagined wealth. She began edging toward the exit, but David smoothly intercepted her. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said quietly, "we'll need you to stay for a moment. There are some questions about certain financial documents you helped process." The crowd had formed a loose circle around us, their phones recording every moment of James Reynolds' spectacular fall from grace. Financial reporters were already uploading breaking news alerts, their headlines probably writing themselves. CEO's double life exposed, or wife reveals secret empire as husband's world crumbles. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the room again, "I apologize for disrupting what you thought was a charity gala. However, I believe in transparency, and it was time for the business world to know exactly who they've been dealing with." Phoenix Holdings has always operated on principles of integrity and innovation, principles that will now be publicly acknowledged under my true identity. The applause that followed was genuine, led by those who had known my secret and supported my rise. Even those who were just learning the truth seemed impressed by the strategic brilliance of building an empire while hiding in plain sight. The ballroom had transformed into an impromptu press conference, with reporters firing questions from every direction. Security had moved James and a tearful Sophia to a quiet corner, where Robert Blackwood was explaining the severity of their situation. The diamond bracelet no longer sparkled quite so brightly on her wrist as she dabbed at her running mascara with a monogrammed handkerchief. "Mrs. Martinez," a Bloomberg reporter called out, pressing forward through the crowd. "How did you manage to keep this secret for so long?" I moved to the podium that had been discreetly set up, adjusting the microphone. It was remarkably easy. Actually, people see what they expect to see. When you're underestimated, it becomes your greatest advantage. "And the beach house funds?" Reuters jumped in, digital recorder extended. "Will you be pursuing legal action against Mr. Reynolds?" "Our legal team is already preparing documentation regarding the misappropriation of company funds," Margaret answered smoothly, stepping up beside me. "The recent transfer of $2 million to Costa Real Estate Holdings, along with numerous other personal expenses charged to company accounts, will be thoroughly investigated." From my position at the podium, I could see James arguing frantically with Robert, probably realizing that the beach house he'd bought for Sophia was about to be repossessed. Sophia herself had edged away from him, her social climbing instincts clearly kicking in as she assessed her rapidly deteriorating position. "Mrs. Martinez," called out another reporter, "what about the Takeshi merger? Was this all orchestrated to expose your husband?" Thomas Takeshi stepped forward before I could respond. "The merger was always intended to be with Phoenix Holdings. Mrs. Martinez's strategy and vision aligned perfectly with our expansion plans. The fact that her husband believed he was orchestrating the deal was—" He paused, allowing himself a small smile. "An entertaining sidebar." "Amanda!" James suddenly broke away from Robert, storming toward the podium. Security moved to intercept him, but I held up my hand, letting him approach. This confrontation was inevitable, and I preferred it happen here, in front of witnesses. Who could document every word? "You've ruined everything!" he shouted, his face mottled with rage. "How could you humiliate me like this?" The room fell silent, cameras rolling as my husband of 15 years finally faced the truth. I leaned into the microphone, making sure every word was captured clearly. "Humiliate you? Like you humiliated me at every dinner party, telling everyone I couldn't understand basic business concepts? Like you humiliated me by flaunting your affair in my own charity events? Or perhaps you mean like you humiliated yourself by stealing from a company you didn't realize your wife owned?" "Those were my accounts," he protested weakly, his voice cracking. "My money." "Your money?" I pulled up another document on the screens. "Let's talk about money, James. Here's your employment contract with Reynolds Pharmaceuticals, a subsidiary of Phoenix Holdings. Here's your salary structure approved by our board. And here," I highlighted a clause, "is the ethics clause. You violated by embezzling company funds for personal use." The color drained from his face as he read the numbers. Every dollar he'd spent on Sophia had been documented, categorized, and traced. The beach house, the jewelry, the expensive dinners, all paid for with funds that technically belonged to his wife's company. Mrs. Martinez, another reporter called out, "What happens to Reynolds Pharmaceuticals now?" As of 9 o'clock this evening, Reynolds Pharmaceuticals has been fully integrated into Phoenix Holdings. All contracts, including the Takeshi merger, will proceed under our direct management. As for Mr. Reynolds, I turned to face my husband, who seemed to have aged a decade in the past hour. His position is under review by our board, pending investigation of financial improprieties. Sophia chose this moment to make her move, stepping forward with rehearsed tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Martinez, I had no idea about any of this. James told me the money was his, that everything was above board. I'm willing to cooperate fully with any investigation." "Save it, Ms. Rodriguez," Margaret cut in, her voice sharp. "We have copies of every document you helped process, every transfer you facilitated. Your cooperation isn't an offer. It's your only option if you want to avoid being named as a co-conspirator in the fraud charges." The evening had devolved into exactly the kind of society scandal James had always feared, but for entirely different reasons than he'd imagined. Instead of being humiliated by his wife's supposed incompetence, he was being exposed as a fraud by the very woman he'd underestimated. "Security," I nodded to the team standing by. "Please escort Mr. Reynolds and Ms. Rodriguez to the conference room. Our legal team has some paperwork for them to review." As they were led away, I could see James's world crumbling in his eyes. Everything he thought he'd built, every success he'd claimed, every deal he'd bragged about, all of it had been orchestrated by the wife he'd dismissed as nothing more than a social planner. The reporters surged forward with fresh questions, but I held up my hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, you'll find detailed press packets waiting for you in the foyer. Full financial disclosures, documentation of the merger, and a complete history of Phoenix Holdings' growth under my leadership. I believe in transparency, now that I can finally be transparent about who I am." The next few hours passed in a blur of camera flashes and urgent conversations. James had been escorted to a conference room, still protesting that there must be some mistake. Sophia had slipped away quietly, leaving behind the diamond bracelet, a futile attempt to distance herself from the scandal that was already breaking across social media. I now sat in what had previously been James's office, though the nameplate already read Alexandra Martinez, CEO. The view of the city at night was spectacular, though I doubted James had ever really appreciated it. He'd been too busy playing at being a powerful man to notice the real power quietly accumulating around him. "The initial market response is better than we anticipated," Margaret reported, sliding a tablet across my desk. Financial data scrolled across the screen, each number confirming what we'd known all along. The market valued competence over confidence. Phoenix Holdings' stock is up 12% in after-hours trading. The transparency about the acquisition and your revelation as CEO is being well received by investors. Breaking news alerts are still coming in, David added, his phone buzzing constantly. CNBC wants an exclusive morning interview, and Bloomberg is running a special report on the hidden queen of pharmaceuticals. Social media is exploding with the story. "And the other matter?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. The machinery we'd set in motion was running with precise efficiency, just as I'd planned. "The freeze on James's accounts is complete," Margaret confirmed, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "The beach house transaction has been flagged for investigation, and the property will be returned to company holdings. As for Ms. Rodriguez?" Margaret allowed herself a small smile. "Sophia has already contacted HR about whistleblower protections. She's offering to provide evidence of James's financial misconduct." "Of course she is," I murmured, remembering how quickly she'd abandoned James once the truth was revealed. "Make sure legal handles her carefully. She's not as innocent as she's pretending to be." My phone buzzed with a text from James. "We need to talk, please. You've destroyed everything I built. I typed back swiftly. Everything you built? You didn't build anything, James. You just took credit for my work while spending my money on your mistress. The response was immediate. It wasn't like that. I loved you. Everything I did was for us. Including the beach house for Sophia? I replied. Then, set the phone aside. Watching it light up with his increasingly desperate messages held no satisfaction anymore. David appeared at my door again, tablet in hand. Mrs. Martinez, the Wall Street Journal is requesting an exclusive interview for tomorrow's edition, and Mr. Takeshi's team wants to move up the merger timeline now that the acquisition is public. Schedule the interview for tomorrow morning, I decided, already mentally preparing my talking points. And tell Thomas we'll meet for lunch to discuss accelerating the merger. Oh, and David, have security pack up James's personal items. He can collect them from the lobby. As David left, Margaret lingered, studying me with the same shrewd expression she'd worn when we first met at business school. You know, I always wondered why you let him believe he was in charge for so long. You could have revealed yourself, years ago, taken control publicly. I walked to the window, looking out at the city I'd quietly conquered while playing the role of a simple trophy wife. The lights of other skyscrapers twinkled back, each one representing another boardroom where men like James made the mistake of underestimating women like me. At first, it was easier to let him underestimate me, I admitted. It gave me freedom to build something extraordinary without interference. Then, after I discovered his first affair 5 years ago, it became a challenge, seeing how much I could accomplish while he was busy looking down on me. And the beach house? You could have stopped that transaction. I could have, I agreed, watching my reflection in the glass. But sometimes you have to let people reveal who they truly are. James showed exactly what kind of man he is by stealing what he thought was our life savings to buy his mistress a beach house. He just forgot to check who actually owned the company he was stealing from. Another text from James flashed on my phone. This isn't over. I'll fight this. I showed Margaret the message, and she laughed, the sound echoing in the vast office. He still doesn't get it, does he? The board meeting tomorrow will officially terminate his employment. The evidence of financial misconduct is overwhelming. Prepare the paperwork for both the termination and the divorce, I instructed, turning back to my desk. It's time to clean house completely. The city lights continued to sparkle outside, but inside, the real illumination was finally happening. The truth was coming to light, and with it, the revelation of who had really been running this empire all along. The next morning's board meeting was set for 9 a.m. sharp. I arrived early, watching the sunrise paint the city skyline in shades of gold, while reading the headlines splashed across every financial news outlet. Phoenix rises. CEO's true identity rocks pharmaceutical industry. Hidden empire. How Alexandra. Martinez built a pharmaceutical giant in plain sight. Reynolds Pharmaceuticals CEO discovers his wife owns his company amid financial scandal. The ultimate corporate takeover. Wife reveals secret ownership of husband's company. The Wall Street Journal interview had gone well, focusing on Phoenix Holdings' impressive growth and innovative management structure rather than the personal drama. Still, social media was ablaze with the story of the underestimated wife who'd built an empire while her husband spent her money on his mistress. Mrs. Martinez, David interrupted my thoughts, appearing at my door with his usual quiet efficiency. Mr. Reynolds is in the lobby, demanding to speak with you. He's not taking no for an answer. Security reports he appears to have been drinking. I checked the security feed on my tablet. James looked disheveled, his usually impeccable appearance showing signs of a sleepless night. His favorite tie, the one I'd given him last Christmas, was crooked, and his eyes had the glassy look of someone running on whiskey and desperation. Let him up, I decided, closing the morning's financial reports. But have security standing by, and make sure the board members see him when they arrive. It's important they understand exactly why we're terminating his position. James burst into my office moments later, bringing with him the stale smell of alcohol and defeat. "How long?" he demanded, his voice hoarse. "How long have you been plotting this? Plotting?" I raised an eyebrow, remaining seated behind my desk. "I founded Phoenix Holdings before I met you, James. I built this company while you were busy telling everyone your wife was too simple to understand business. The real question is, how long have you been stealing from me to fund your affair?" "I didn't steal anything." His fist came down hard on my desk, sending ripples through my coffee. "Those were our joint accounts, filled with dividends from my company," I corrected him calmly. "Money you spent on a beach house for your mistress. Tell me, did you even consider where those funds came from? Or were you too busy picking out jewelry for Sophia to question your sudden wealth?" He slumped into one of the visitor chairs, his anger deflating slightly. "The merger. Takeshi. You orchestrated all of it? Every deal you thought you made, every contract you believed you negotiated, all approved by my board. You were never more than a middle manager, James, a subsidiary CEO who got too big for his boots." "Why?" His voice cracked. "Why maintain this charade for so long? Why not just tell me who you were?" "At first, because you were so convinced of your own superiority that you never questioned anything. Do you remember our 3rd anniversary? When you laughed at my suggestion about expanding into biotechnology? 2 weeks later, Phoenix Holdings acquired 3 biotech firms, and you bragged to everyone about your brilliant investment strategy." The board members were arriving now. I could see them gathering in the conference room across the hall, watching our exchange through the glass walls. Their expressions ranged from professional detachment to barely concealed satisfaction at seeing James's comeuppance. "And then I discovered your first affair," I continued, standing to look down at him. "That's when it became something else. I wanted to see how far you'd go, how much you'd steal from the company you thought you owned, all while dismissing your wife as nothing more than a charity event planner." James ran his hands through his disheveled hair, his wedding ring catching the morning light. "I never meant to hurt you, Amanda. The affair with Sophia, it was a mistake. We can fix this. Start over." "My name," I cut him off, "is Alexandra Martinez. And this isn't about hurt feelings, James. This is about business. You've demonstrated gross financial misconduct, violated multiple clauses of your employment contract, and misappropriated company funds. The board is meeting in exactly 20 minutes to terminate your position and initiate legal proceedings." "You can't do this!" He stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "I'll fight you. I'll tell everyone how you deceived me, how you played me for a fool." "Tell them what, exactly?" I asked quietly. "That you were too arrogant to realize your wife was your boss? That you stole company money to buy gifts for your mistress? That every success you claimed was actually orchestrated by the woman you dismissed as just a charity planner?" The board members filed into my office silently, arranging themselves around the conference table. James looked like a cornered animal, as he realized this wasn't just a private confrontation, it was his termination hearing. His eyes darted between the familiar faces, searching for an ally but finding none. "Mr. Reynolds." Robert Blackwood opened his thick leather folder. "Legal. Documents neatly arranged within. We're here to discuss several concerning financial transactions made under your authority as subsidiary CEO of Reynolds Pharmaceuticals." "This is ridiculous," James snapped, but his voice trembled. "I built that company. It has my name." "Actually," Margaret interjected, pulling up financial records on the wall screen, "Reynolds Pharmaceuticals was purchased by Phoenix Holdings 7 years ago. The name was maintained for market continuity, but ownership has been clear in all. CC filings." She clicked through a series of slides showing the acquisition history. "Documents you signed yourself, though I doubt you bothered to read them." I watched as Robert laid out the evidence: the unauthorized transfers, the misappropriated funds, the beach house purchase, and countless charges at high-end retailers, all technically paid for with company money. Each transaction appeared on screen, a digital trail of James's betrayal and arrogance. $2 million transferred to Costa Real Estate Holdings, Robert continued, highlighting the transaction. Another $86,000 at Tiffany's, numerous charges at luxury hotels and restaurants, all under the guise of business meetings. Mr. Reynolds, can you explain these expenditures? James looked desperately around the room, finding no sympathy in the faces of the board members who had kept my secret for years. Those were legitimate business expenses. I was entertaining clients. Is that what you call buying your assistant a beach house? Margaret's voice dripped with disdain. Because Ms. Rodriguez has provided quite a different account of those business meetings. Would you like to hear her statement, Sophia? James paled visibly. What do you mean? I slid a document across the table. She came to HR this morning with a full statement about your relationship and the gifts you purchased using company funds. She's quite eager to cooperate with our investigation. Apparently, loyalty only runs as deep as the last diamond bracelet. That little... James caught himself, aware of the recording devices capturing every word. She agreed to keep quiet. I gave her everything she wanted. With my money, I reminded him. Did you really think she'd stay loyal once she realized you weren't the powerful CEO you pretended to be? That beach house you bought her? It's being repossessed as we speak, along with every other gift you purchased with misappropriated funds. David appeared at the door with another update. Mrs. Martinez, Ms. Rodriguez's legal team has just delivered additional documentation. They're requesting immunity in exchange for her full cooperation. Of course they are, Margaret muttered, taking the new files. Rats and sinking ships. The board has seen enough, Robert announced, his bow tie perfectly straight as always. Mr. Reynolds, your employment with Phoenix Holdings and all its subsidiaries is terminated, effective immediately. Given the evidence of financial misconduct, we'll be pursuing full recovery of misappropriated funds. You can't do this! James stood so abruptly his chair toppled backward. I'll fight this in court. I'll tell everyone how you deceived me. Tell them what, exactly? I asked calmly. That you were too arrogant to realize your wife was your boss? That you stole company money to buy gifts for your mistress? That every success you claimed was actually orchestrated by the woman you dismissed as just a charity planner? The truth of his situation finally seemed to hit him. James staggered slightly, reaching for the edge of the table to steady himself. The house, he said quietly. Our home. I suppose that's yours too? Actually, it's one of Phoenix Holdings' corporate properties. You'll need to vacate by the end of the week. I turned to David. Make sure Mr. Reynolds receives the paperwork about returning all company property, including the Rolex and the car. This isn't happening, James muttered, more to himself than anyone else. This can't be happening. I had deals in progress. Clients waiting? Those clients, Margaret interjected, have already been informed of the leadership transition. Most have expressed relief that they'll be dealing directly with Phoenix Holdings now. Security will escort you out, I said, watching as James's world crumbled around him. Your personal items have been packed and are waiting in the lobby. I suggest you leave quietly. We wouldn't want to add creating a scene to the list of reasons for your termination. 2 security guards appeared at the door. James looked at them, then back at me, the fight finally draining from his posture. The proud man who'd spent years mocking his wife's business acumen now stood defeated in the office that had always truly been mine. Amanda, Alexandra, he corrected himself, his voice barely above a whisper. Everything we built together. We didn't build anything together, James, I interrupted. I built an empire while you took credit for my work. The only thing you built was a fantasy, funded with money you stole from me. The board members watched silently as James was led away, his expensive suit, another gift paid for with company funds, wrinkled and stained from his sleepless night. Through the glass walls, I could see office workers trying to appear busy, while stealing glances at their former CEO's walk of shame. "Well," Margaret said after he'd gone, "that was certainly more dramatic than our usual board meetings. Though I must say, his reaction was rather anticlimactic given the circumstances." "Have legal prepare a statement about the leadership transition," I instructed, already focusing on the future. "And schedule a company-wide meeting. It's time our employees met their real CEO." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. News channels ran constant coverage of the story. Financial analysts debated the implications for the pharmaceutical industry, and social media exploded with memes about the wife who owned her husband's company. "Mrs. Martinez," David appeared, with fresh reports. "The PR team has compiled initial media reactions. The narrative is overwhelmingly positive. You're being hailed as a business genius who exposed corporate fraud while building an empire in plain sight." I scanned the reports, noting how quickly the story had evolved from scandal to inspiration. "Corporate Queen: How Alexandra Martinez Built a Pharmaceutical Empire While Her Husband Wasn't Looking," read one headline. "The Ultimate Power Move: CEO Reveals Secret Identity as Subsidiary Executive's Wife," declared another. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "I've moved my things out. You've taken everything from me." "No, James," I typed back. "You lost everything." "Yourself. I just let you do it with your own money." "Well, my money, actually." Margaret entered with more updates. "Sophia's legal team has submitted a formal cooperation agreement. They're offering complete access to her personal records, emails, and text messages in exchange for immunity from prosecution." "Accept it," I decided, "but make sure the agreement includes a non-disclosure clause about her relationship with James. We're focusing on the financial misconduct, not the affair." "Speaking of finances," she continued, "the forensic accounting team has traced all the unauthorized transfers. Besides the beach house and jewelry, there were numerous cash withdrawals, luxury hotel stays, and even a down payment on a yacht." I couldn't help but laugh at that last bit. "A yacht? Really?" Apparently, he was planning to surprise Sophia with it after the Takeshi merger closed. Margaret's tone was dry. "He'd already picked out a name for it. The Power Couple." "The irony is almost painful," I mused, turning to look out at the city skyline. How many board meetings did he sit through, bragging about deals I had actually negotiated? How many times did he take credit for strategies I had developed? David appeared again with more pressing matters. "The Wall Street Journal piece is ready for your approval, and CNN wants to do a special report on women in corporate leadership. Also, Mr. Takeshi's team has sent over the accelerated merger timeline." I signed the merger documents with the same pen I'd used to sign our marriage. Licensed 12 years ago. Another piece of irony that didn't escape me. "Mrs. Martinez," David hesitated. "There's one more thing. James is doing interviews." I raised an eyebrow. "With whom?" "Anyone who'll listen. He's trying to paint himself as the victim of a long con, claiming you manipulated him and orchestrated his downfall." "Let him talk," I decided. "Every interview he gives just makes him look more foolish. How many men will admit they failed to notice their wife was their boss for 7 years? The sun was setting over the city as I finished the day's tasks. In less than 24 hours, I had transformed from James's underestimated wife to one of the most talked-about CEOs in the country. The business world was fascinated by how I'd built an empire in plain sight, all while being dismissed as nothing more than a trophy wife. "One last thing," Margaret said, pausing at my door. "The beach house has been listed for sale. The realtor thinks we can get well above what James paid for it." "Good," I nodded. "Use the proceeds to fund a scholarship program for women in business. Let's make sure the next generation doesn't have to hide their success to achieve it." A key. Week later, as I signed the final divorce papers, I received another notification. The beach house James had bought for Sophia had been sold at a profit. The funds returned to Phoenix Holdings accounts. Sophia herself had accepted a junior position at one of our subsidiaries, in a different state, far from any temptation to mix business with pleasure. "Mrs. Martinez," David appeared with my morning coffee and a stack of magazines. "The latest coverage continues to be positive. Forbes wants you for their Most Powerful Women issue, and Harvard Business Review is doing a case study on Phoenix Holdings' management strategy." I flipped through the magazines, each cover telling a different version of the same story. The CEO who hid in plain sight. How one woman built a pharmaceutical empire in secret. The ultimate corporate undercover boss. The business world. Couldn't get enough of the story. "The numbers from yesterday's trading are in," Margaret announced, striding into my office with her tablet. "Our stock is up another 15% since the revelation. Investors are impressed with the long-term strategy and management structure. The fact that we kept this secret for so long while maintaining perfect regulatory compliance has actually enhanced our credibility." "And James?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from my security team's reports. "Still giving interviews, though fewer outlets are interested now. He's shifted from claiming conspiracy to begging for reconciliation. His latest statement to the press was quite emotional." I pulled up the video on my screen. There was James, looking haggard despite his still expensive suit, speaking to a local news station. "Amanda, Alexandra, if you're watching this, I understand now. I see what I didn't see before. Please just give me a chance to make things right." He still doesn't get it, I mused, closing the video. This was never about him. It was about building something extraordinary while being underestimated at every turn. My phone buzzed with a message from Thomas Takeshi. "Merger integration proceeding ahead of schedule. Board very impressed with your hands-on approach. Dinner. Next week to discuss Asian market expansion? Schedule the dinner with Thomas," I told David, "and set up the video conference with our European partners. It's time to take Phoenix Holdings global." Looking out over the city, I could see my company's logo shining on several buildings. Buildings that had once displayed the Reynolds Pharmaceuticals name. The transformation was more than cosmetic. It was a visible symbol of the truth, finally. "Coming to light. Mrs. Martinez," David interrupted my thoughts again. "The Women's Leadership Conference called. They'd like you to give the keynote speech next month. The theme is Hidden Talents, Recognizing and Promoting Women in Business." I smiled at the irony. "Accept the invitation. I think I have something to say on that topic." The day continued with a steady stream of meetings, each one reinforcing how different life was now that I could operate openly. No more pretending to be confused by business terms. No more hiding my knowledge behind a facade of charitable interests. "The PR team has prepared a statement about the scholarship program," Margaret reported later that afternoon. "They're calling it the Phoenix Rising Scholarship for Women in Business. The initial funding from the beach house sale will support 10 full scholarships. Make it 20, I decided. Add matching funds from corporate accounts. Let's make sure other women don't have to hide their light under a bushel." A notification popped up on my screen. Another message from James, this time through his lawyer. "Client proposes joint statement about amicable separation. Willing to admit financial misconduct in exchange for positive portrayal in company narrative." Decline, I told legal immediately. The truth is already out there. We don't need to manage his reputation. The sun was setting when Margaret brought in the final report of the day. Forensic accounting has finished their analysis. The total amount James misappropriated over the years comes to just over $12 million. Including the yacht down payment? Including the yacht, which, by the way, has been seized and will be auctioned next month. I signed the last document requiring my attention, an authorization for a new research facility that would focus on developing affordable medications for rare diseases. It was the kind of project James had always dismissed as unprofitable, never understanding that true success meant more than just quarterly earnings. One last thing, David said from the doorway. Sophia's lawyer called. She's writing a book. I couldn't help but laugh. Of course she is. Make sure our legal team reviews any mentions of Phoenix Holdings or its subsidiaries. And David, send her a copy of her signed NDA, just as a friendly reminder. As night fell over the city, I stood at my office window, watching the lights come on in buildings across the skyline. Each one represented another opportunity, another chance to build something meaningful. The days of hiding my achievements were over. Now I could finally be exactly who I'd always been. A CEO who had proven that sometimes the greatest power lies in being underestimated. 3 months after the revelation that shook the financial world, I sat in my office reviewing the latest quarterly reports. Phoenix Holdings hadn't just survived the exposure of its true CEO, we were thriving. Our stock had doubled, and the IHB story of the wife who built an empire while being underestimated had become legend in business circles. Mrs. Martinez, David appeared with my morning coffee. The Forbes cover story is out, and the photo shoot for Business Weekly is scheduled for this afternoon. Also, you might want to see this. He handed me his tablet, showing a local news article. Former Reynolds Pharmaceuticals CEO James Reynolds takes position as junior sales manager at Midwest Pharmaceutical Distributors. The article detailed my ex-husband's fall from grace, complete with quotes from industry insiders about his humbling career transition. The man who once mocked my business acumen was now starting over at the bottom, his reputation in tatters, his assets frozen pending the completion of our financial investigation. Oh, and Ms. Rodriguez called again, David added, his tone carefully neutral. She's requesting another meeting to discuss her role in the company. Tell Sophia that her position in our Minneapolis office is final, I replied firmly. She's lucky to have a job at all after her part in James's financial misconduct. And make sure her supervisor understands that she's not to be promoted without direct approval from this office. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. Turn on CNBC. They're doing a special report on Phoenix Holdings expansion. I switched. On the wall-mounted screen, watching as financial analysts dissected our latest acquisition, a major European pharmaceutical company that James had tried and failed to partner with last year. The ticker showed our stock price climbing yet again. In a stunning turnaround, the anchor was saying, Phoenix Holdings, under the leadership of Alexandra Martinez, has accomplished in 3 months what industry veterans couldn't do in 3 years. The question everyone's asking, what's next for the CEO who built an empire while being dismissed as just a charity planner? The answer to that question lay in the document spread across my desk. Plans for a new research facility in Singapore, a revolutionary cancer drug entering final trials, and a partnership with a leading biotechnology firm, the same one James had dismissed as too risky just months ago. Mrs. Martinez, my intercom buzzed. The board members are here for the strategy meeting. I gathered my files, pausing to straighten the new artwork in my office. A simple frame containing the bank statement showing James's transfer to Costa Real Estate Holdings. I'd kept it as a reminder that sometimes the biggest mistakes come from underestimating the wrong person. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. These were the same people who had kept my secret for years, who had watched me build this company while playing the role of the simple corporate wife. Now they watched me take my place at the head of the table, no more pretense needed. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, opening my presentation. Let's talk about the future of Phoenix Holdings. And please, I added with a smile, no need to dumb down the financial terms. I think we all know I can handle them. The laughter that filled the room was genuine, respectful. As I looked around at these powerful executives who now openly acknowledged my leadership, I thought about how different this was from the dinners where James had dismissed my every comment about business. The meeting proceeded efficiently, each department head presenting their updates. Our research division had 3 promising new drugs in development. The international expansion was ahead of schedule. The merger with Takeshi had already exceeded profit projections. And finally, Margaret concluded, the sale of the Malibu beach house closed yesterday. As per your instructions, the proceeds have been added to the Women's Scholarship Fund. Perfect timing, I noted. The first class of scholarship recipients starts their MBA programs next month. 20 young women who won't have to hide their ambitions or pretend to be less than they are. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find another message from James. I miss you. The house feels empty without you. Can we talk? I deleted it without responding. The time for talks had passed. The man who'd spent years undermining me while spending my money would have to live with the consequences of his actions. Mrs. Martinez, David appeared with more updates. The Harvard Business School case study is ready for your review, and the leadership conference wants to confirm your keynote speech for next month. Schedule a time for me to review the case study, I instructed, and confirm the keynote. I think I have quite a bit to say about recognizing talent in unexpected places. As the day drew to a close, I stood at my office window, watching the city lights come on. Somewhere out there, James was probably sitting in his small rented apartment, wondering how he'd missed the signs, how he'd failed to see that his wife was more than just a pretty face at charity events. But I didn't waste time thinking about him anymore. I had an empire to run, and this time, I could do it without hiding who I really was. 1 year after James's very public downfall, Phoenix Holdings had expanded into global markets, our success story becoming a case study in business schools worldwide. The press had finally tired of the wife who owned her husband's company angle, focusing instead on our groundbreaking pharmaceutical research and innovative corporate structure. I kept only one reminder of James in my office, that framed bank statement showing his transfer to Costa Real Estate Holdings. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that success isn't always about who shouts the loudest or brags the most. Sometimes it's about quietly building something extraordinary while others underestimate you. Mrs. Martinez, David entered with the morning briefing. Final numbers from Q4 show record profits. The Asian expansion has exceeded all projections, and the new research facility in Singapore is ahead of schedule. I reviewed the reports while watching CNBC's morning market coverage. Our stock had tripled since the revelation, making Phoenix Holdings one of the most valuable pharmaceutical companies in the world. The beach house that had triggered everything had been transformed into a corporate retreat center, where we now ran leadership programs specifically designed to advance women in business. The first class of Phoenix Rising Scholars graduates next month, Margaret added, joining us with her tablet. All 20 have already received multiple job offers. 3 of them will be joining us here. Sophia occasionally sent updates from her entry-level position in Minneapolis, probably hoping for a promotion that would never come. Her book deal had fallen through after our legal team reminded her publisher about the ironclad NDA she'd signed. James had settled into his new role at Midwest Pharmaceuticals, selling generic medications to small-town pharmacies. He never did figure out that he was still technically working for me. Midwest was one of Phoenix Holdings' smaller subsidiaries, a fact that amused the board to no end. The Wall Street Journal piece just dropped, David announced, pulling up the article on my screen. They're calling you the Queen of Pharma and highlighting our patient-first approach to drug development. I scanned the article, pleased to see the focus on our achievements rather than the scandal that had revealed them. We'd launched 3 revolutionary treatments in the past year, including a breakthrough cancer therapy that James had once dismissed as too expensive to develop. Your keynote speech for next week's Global Business Forum is ready for review, David continued. The theme is innovation through inclusion, particularly fitting given our history. I smiled, remembering all the times James had mocked the idea of women running major companies. Now, under my leadership, Phoenix Holdings had more female executives than any other Fortune 500 company. Mrs. Martinez, Margaret interrupted. The board wanted me to remind you about the anniversary celebration next month. 5 years since we acquired Reynolds Pharmaceuticals, 1 year since the truth came out. Schedule it, I decided. But make it about looking forward, not back. We've built something remarkable here, and it's time to focus on where we're going, not where we've been. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising so far above someone that they spend the rest of their life looking up, remembering how they once looked down on you. I'd built an empire while being underestimated, and now that empire was changing the world. After all, I wasn't just a wife planning charity events. I was building something extraordinary, one dismissed comment at a time. And now, finally, everyone knew it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.